Welcome to Santa Barbara Talks with Josh Molina. It's such a pleasure today to be here with my friend John Davies, who is just an expert in so many fields in this town. And a lot of people know him as the founder of Davies Public Relations and the CEO of Blaze PR. How are you doing today, John?
I'm doing great. It's a great Saturday, and I have a good football game to watch tonight. So life don't get any better.
Yeah, you have so many titles, and I only know you in this fraction of the world, which is political consulting and being sort of the expert behind the scenes on so many campaigns over the years. You do a lot less of it locally, but I know your ad is involved in some things, and that's what I want to talk to you about mostly today. But let's start big, John, with obviously what happened nationally. Donald Trump elected to another term as president after taking a 4-year break. The liberal Democrats are acting like this is literally the end of the world. The conservatives are very happy. It's an example of what they say. This is really what the country's all about. These kind of values. Of course, California traditionally very liberal, but moved a little bit more conservative this time.
So in New York.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
you know, what's going on? How did Trump do this, John?
Well, I think Trump, with the help of the Democrats, redefined the parties. And I want to talk about what I think happened in the campaigns, because some of it's just plain ordinary math. But the parties got redefined. Trump has been running and the candidate 3 times. So 8, 12 years he's out there. He's defined what's happened over the last 3 presidentials, but also the 2 midterms in those. And what it is he's made the working class, the hard working class, blue collar Republicans, get in a taxi in any city, any of the medium cities in the Midwest, or Uber, and you start talking, you're like, where did this guy's political views come from? I mean, this is not what I would have heard from a 65-year-old retired firefighter who now drives Uber on the side just for fun.
Yeah.
And he's a conservative. And the Democrats, as that push happened, they started to define themselves more and become defined by, if you look at where they gained, college educated, uber wealthy, and people that live in more urban areas. And so that's a major change.
Yeah.
And so if you look at Donald Trump's life, he has always been a very wealthy man, as he inherited a lot of money, but who related to the working class. They were always his people. He always hung around with them. He's a guy that would find out some guy's having a problem at the local store near him, and he'd go in and figure it out. He'd meet someone. He's always been this friendly working class attitude, and they related to him. He was a hero to them because he succeeded. And so he came into these elections, and the electorate got repainted. So that's one thing. And you see that, don't you?
Yeah.
His rhetoric is that.
Well, I mean, there's just something to speaking plainly, speaking what's on your mind, and talking directly to people as opposed to coming across as being intellectually superior. And for a lot of voters who don't live in the political media world or academic world, they're just living their lives. They like that talk.
They do.
It's refreshing.
And so they what they tried to do in this campaign, Biden's campaign didn't exist. It was crazy. I mean, he was in bad shape. The campaign was bad, and he really didn't have much of a message or campaign going. I mean, I kept saying, when is he going to drop out? And someday we'll hear about it from some group of insiders that their goal was to have him drop out, and they had a candidate who didn't rise. And the problem was when they got so late and they forced Biden out, all the money in the campaign fund could only go to Harris. The money already collected. So she was the only candidate that could take over that late.
Yeah.
And they weren't a big fan. I mean, she's never been a great campaigner. I
Right.
mean, she crashed and burned in 19. She at one point was the front runner for the Democratic nomination in
Yeah.
2020, and she crashed and burned before one primary. So that wasn't good. But I think the other is that we get to their attitudes, we get to who they are, we get to how they fired up people. A lot of people who are frustrated with the economy, frustrated with COVID. But the other is that there's some math to this. So the re-elections for candidates when the public has favorable rating, and we have to give her to Biden. If it's 50% or below,
Yeah.
you're likely to lose, and if it's above, you're going to win. So if you look at H.W. Bush, he lost. You look at Carter, he lost. You look at Biden. You look at Trump in 2020, and he had a low rating. You look at Jerry Ford, who crashed and burned. Then you look at HW. I mean, he rocked it. You look at Clinton, who was way up on top, and you look at Reagan, and so you simple math there. You got a favorable rating, and a lot of people thought because Trump did okay with an unfavorable rating in 2020 that world's changed. No, it hasn't. It just hasn't. I mean, if you come home, I saw some numbers about the first district race here where Doss Williams's favorable ratings were below 50, and that he was in trouble. So you have that crazy deal. And Obama was at 51, 52. And Bush was at 50 W. And then you look at the consumer confidence. So when consumer confidence is below like 70, you're not going to get elected. And it wasn't great. So, W. Bush or not H.W. Bush, everything's good. I mean, you look up and down what happened. Clinton, by the way, highest favorables. I looked all these up while watching come to the election. Clinton was the highest favorable and the best consumer confidence. Yeah. I think I'll forget how high he went out. Elected. And he was, all the crazy stuff that's happened since. And Reagan the same. So that's math. If people don't like you, people want to feel good about their life, they're not going to vote for you. Yeah. Doesn't matter who you are.
Let me ask you this, because this is something I struggle with. Okay. Conservative, liberal, Republicans, Democrats, fine. Right. Wherever you are, you're on that political spectrum. But Donald Trump, right, is a convicted felon. He's a sexual, he's been convicted of sexual assault. He is, I can imagine, John, if he was somebody you knew in real life around town, you probably would distance yourself from him based off of just his morals and his ethics and the way he makes fun of people. It doesn't really matter, John McCain, soldier, how are people able to forgive that and vote for him? I know the economy, but can you talk me through that?
I think it's the sexual assault. I mean, let's not get into and re-prosecute what happened this year in the court in New York on that. Okay. I mean, that case was a total joke. So on that case, I think that his sins are horrible and common, but he was a philanderer through a couple marriages. Nothing good about that. But he did not sexually assault anyone. Every time there was a charge, it never went anywhere. The people recanted after. In the case they had in New York, she couldn't even name the date or time. I mean, this is like Kavanaugh all over again. And you go. You can get a guilty verdict in New York City against a conservative in about 30 seconds. So I'd throw that away. But his name calling and the vitriol that he thought was fun it was bad. And if you notice, that didn't come out at the end of this campaign. The last 107 days against Harris, it didn't happen. Right. To making those names up and doing it. He thought it was funny. He thought it was a notoriety. And it's a New York thing. It's one of the bad things in New York. You're walking down, I'm walking here. Get out of the way, Dr. Ed. And people just talk like that. And he just took it to a higher level and all his supporters and friends thought he was funny. It was bad. And I think he woke up and had to do, I think getting shot at changed him in ways that I don't think he didn't become like the nice candidate. He didn't weep on the stage, but he changed. He didn't do the stuff. I mean, he called spade a spade is what he thought. But I've always watched that Trump is a unique character in that his supporters, number one, totally forgive him. This time, one of the things you see in all the polling that made it absolutely crazy for Harris in the campaign, it was hard for them to persuade undecided voters that Trump had done a bad job in his first presidency. They didn't buy it. I mean, he had two issues, both related to COVID, but two issues that were not great. One was COVID. And he's the guy that handled COVID. Did he respond too late? Did he respond too quick? What was it? And then the economic collapse with COVID. And that wasn't great. So, I mean, wide open to go at it. I really felt that he was vulnerable in the primary to a COVID attack. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't that he didn't do the right thing, that he did too much. That the conservatives who really don't like Fauci and didn't like the vaccines and all the charges, I thought he was vulnerable, that he was taken by that.
Yeah.
In the general, and they couldn't get it. And then you take COVID and that stuff away. And then you look at Roe. And it didn't stick. Right. We didn't get blamed. So in 2022, and it was all about reproductive rights, as they like to say. Right. It was all about abortion.
Yeah.
And so he didn't get stuck with it. And, he dodged it. He was never looked at as a radical pro-life. He was never crazy, but it was his judges mm-hmm. that produced Roe, the defeat of Roe. So, I mean, that was crazy. And he had message discipline. So when you're in a campaign or you're having an argument with your wife, you have a winning agenda. You have three issues that you can win the debate on. The judges are in the audience. You have three issues you're going to lose the debate on. Now, what people do most commonly is they go to the other person's messages and they try to prove that they're wrong. Well, that doesn't work. You got to stay on your messages and prove that they're right and have discipline. He had discipline. And when he talked about abortion, he talked about being a state issue. It's where it belongs now. It's with the states. I won't do anything to change it. And then he would not get into the debate. That was pretty interesting. Mm. Yeah. So, when he was debating and playing out there, he just had a lot more discipline this time.
Yeah. So I looked it up while we're talking. It was a $5 million civil judgment right. against him. And so you're saying it's New York and it's
no one bought it. I mean, what did it mean? What happened to him during the lawfare? Which I hate those terms, but I think they were correct. His fundraising went up and his polling numbers went up.
Do you admire Trump? Like as a good man?
That's such a hard question, because what man are you talking about? The man who's willing to step out of his luxury lifestyle, his addiction to the golf, his addiction to the gold rooms to be in all the time, yeah. and to take on probably the worst, most horrible role in history is being a president of this nation during this time. I totally admire that he's willing to do it, and he's willing to play as hard of a game with our enemies as he can. I mean, he's already got China on the run. He's already got Canada and Mexico on the run. I mean, he's just a tough guy. But that guy I admired. The guy with how he talks to people and does stuff. No, I mean, I have folks on my team that have worked in the White House, many over time, but in his White House, and they voted for him, but they're not his best friend. So he's a tough guy, and I don't know who else could have won on the Republican side this time. Who could have won?
What do you think of his cabinet picks? We have Linda McMahon, Education Secretary, of course. A lot of the Elon Musk, people who seemingly are not qualified for these positions, but favors. in return, you supported me heavily.
I'm not buying the favors in return at all, because he doesn't need favors in return. Elon Musk doesn't have a cabinet position. Vivek doesn't have he doesn't have to go through approval. They're going to be out there, being crazy, swinging at things. But I mean, he's picking true believers who support him. That's what he has. He has people that support him. So if anything, it's not a payback; it's a pay forward. They're going to get a crazy position. I mean, Matt at Gates. I mean, that was crazy when that came out. I'm like, really? And
what hated you? You're like, no on that one. Yeah.
I'm like, no, I wasn't. No, I'm like, this isn't going anywhere. and by the way, it was interesting because he resigned from his House seat immediately. And he knows he's going to, I mean, he knew it was going to be an awful approval, that confirmation hearings would be awful with him.
Right.
And why would he resign so quickly and give up his seat before he got it?
Yeah.
Because he didn't want the report to come out with the House. So it was almost like a gift from Trump to say, listen, I'm going to name you, you resign, we'll figure out some other way to play later. You can, we'll help you do something. But he's been a loyal Trump, and he's very Trump-like in many ways, including the shakiness in his life.
Yeah.
But he's an interesting guy. His wife lives and works in Santa Barbara. I don't know if you know that.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, Nat is here all the time.
Okay, so I'm reminded that I did hear something about that now. Yes, yeah.
So
all the time.
He may be walking down State Street more and more these days. So he's doing cameo videos for people now.
All right, I'm going to get him on the show and have all my liberal viewers just
you can go crazy, yeah. And so, but you look at some of the others. Dan Bondi, she's a great attorney general appointment. Marco Rubio. I mean, I have never been a big Marco Rubio fan. He just makes me nervous.
Yeah.
But he's solid as a rock. And he's chaired the Senate Foreign Relations Committee or been the minority leader. He knows foreign relations backward and forward, and he's not going to put up with any crap. And that's what Trump's looking for. I mean, he got in there last time. He named a bunch of people he thought were nice. And they're really nice, but they didn't like Trump.
Yeah.
They were Washington insiders. So he's going hard. He's picking his friends. He's staring down China. He's staring down Mexico and saying, you guys get your act together.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. California, a lot of these counties voted for Trump in higher numbers than 4 years ago. And there's lots of reasons, housing, the economy, the cost of goods, living wage, all these reasons. Why is California seemingly, in your mind, going a little bit red, or why can't they support Harris? You would think that, it should be a blowaway in California.
I mean, she's never been a super popular politician here. She's won office. She sort of walked into the game. She's had one of the most absolutely protected lives in politics. You had, the Speaker, Willie Brown, one of the all-time most powerful California Democrats. Help her with her career. She walked into the AG's office with a lot of support and a lot of push. I mean, everyone that I know, Democratic Party, called me saying, you got to help this woman. She's an up and comer. Willie really likes her. I mean, it was crazy. So, and so, yeah, I don't think it was about Harris. I think the world of California, all of a sudden, it's like, I think it goes back to the whole gender issues that we're having with kids. Not overall. I don't think it's a trans issue or anything, but I think it's that your kids can change gender without the parents. And it's like that. I mean, I know a lot of people that are middle of the road on other issues that come to me and say, I probably sort of agree with you on some issues now.
Yeah.
That went a little too far.
Mm-hmm.
And the other is, what is California? At the end of the day, California isn't a bunch of urban elites. We're suburban and rural. And we did a campaign in Napa years ago. And as I'm doing the campaign, my client's like, John, you're talking down to these people. You're not talking the right way. Like, with all due respect, look at the social media. When I put something that's middle America, I get crazy responses. When I do something that's highbrow wine country, I don't get any responses. I mean, Napa is Bakersfield with the wine industry. It's an agricultural community with a wine industry.
Mm.
And so I think California is a lot more moderate than we think.
Excellent. So that's nationally, right? And clearly Trump is, conservatism is, at a level we have not seen it in a while.
I don't know if it's conservatism, Josh. I mean, there's a lot of Trump who's, more populism.
Oh,
He's, the conservative stuff, I think he's adopted, but I think his true nature is more of a populist.
People who aren't into politics, who think politics don't matter, they're siding with Trump. So that's populism.
Exactly. You got it.
So let's talk locally, because we don't have as much success locally with conservatives, or
Come on, they dominate. There's got to be one elected to something here.
yes, winning office here. And I'm sort of always flabbergasted at how they campaign and how they don't go toe to toe with the Democratic Central Committee. But we have a university out here. Why don't we go just pull all those young Republicans and just say, hey, go knock on doors? It seems like the Central Committee's got kind of a whole different, kind of older skew on what politics is. So I want to talk about locally, but specifically, I want to talk about the Santa Barbara City Council, the District 1 race with Alejandra Gutierrez, the incumbent, the current office holder, taking on Wendy Santa Maria. And rent control became the big issue. I had hoped in my sources that, maybe you had a hand in some of this, the messaging. But did you have a role there, John? And why did all of that?
Well, I'm Allie's friend.
Okay.
And, I gave her some money. I went to one party for her. I really like her. I like who she's become. I have my challenges with her as a candidate and office holder. But she's like an old school Santa Barbara council member. She knew her people, she knew them well, and she didn't buck, she didn't bend and bow to the Democratic Party, and they just hated her. I mean, she lost for the reason that Randy and Joyce, now 6 liberal Democrats on the council, mostly, bowing to them. Now, what other people that ran this time, where there was some rent control issues that are more moderates, and they went and did crazy stuff before the election started, and they did it all to keep the party happy. I mean, the Democratic Party has a stranglehold on every Democratic office holder and on the offices here. I mean, these guys, they rule, they have a majority. And the Republican Party, I mean, we have people run, and they want to run. I swear they want to run and talk about Trump issues. They want to talk about everything but the issues that can help them win. I mean, people running for school board or school superintendents. I mean, at the end of the day, these people have a huge budget, and our schools are not running very well. I mean, Santa Barbara schools are near the bottom third of the state. The state is at the bottom third of the nation, and the nation is at the bottom third of the developed world.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, for how much money? I mean, how much is your property tax everywhere? I mean, I know what I pay, and I know how much goes to schools, and I sent my kids from preschool through high school to a private school. And we won't talk about yours because you may get run out of town on the rail. But I mean,
I didn't transfer to the public school,
But okay, good.
You finished at DP, yes.
It's awesome. But it's just, the idea is that's the story. But instead we talk about these hyper conservative liberal issues. The real issues are what are you doing to get the kids through school? And that's a perfect example. And then, putting someone up to run against Greg Hart. And I mean, Mike Stoker is a great guy last time, 2 years ago. But I mean, I'm sorry, but Greg Hart's going to win almost any office he runs for.
Sure.
I mean, he's one of the most popular, most gifted politicians. And why did the Republican Party put in $400,000 to a campaign that was dead the day Greg filed as a Democratic candidate? I mean, take underbases, you can win.
Yeah.
And don't waste it. Another simple. Let's poor Mike spent a year of his life. You get in your 70s, the years start being precious.
Yeah. And I get that. And I think that conservatives spend too much time talking about national talking points
Exactly.
in these local elections. And they think that what's happening out there on the Daily Wire and Ben Shapiro and all these conservatives who are talking on the internet, they think that voters here feel that same way. And there may be some entertainment wise tapped into that, but they're not focusing on the issues, housing, education. And so
it is so easy. By the way, we have so many issues that you can drive contrast with.
yeah. So, okay. So I'm going to push back a little bit. Okay. It's not just that Alejandra Gutierrez went up against the Democratic Party, because if you recall, they embraced her when she ran the first time. In fact, they encouraged her to run, and they said she's a strong Latina, smart candidate. We're going to get behind her, and she's going to be our candidate. What happened in the middle was a lot of stuff that some people know the real story, not everybody, but she has some serious health problems. She wasn't available to the whole time. That's being positive and generous of that description. But separate from that, she was not as hardworking and present as she could have been, right? And so, what happened, Mayor, from your perspective? If you're an incumbent and you're sitting on the city council, don't you just do everything you can to try to keep that position? Because not a lot of people will occupy that seat.
No, I mean, that's a confusion for me. As I said, I really like her. She's a very, very special human to me. And, I had my disappointments in all that and how she did it. So, I mean, like seriously, why are you doing this more? Where have you been? And then she happened to pick one issue where she represented her district, her local constituents that own rental property, little 2 and 3 unit things, where she protected them against some really bad rent control laws, really, really bad. And we do very little work here, but I will tell you, every potential developer or owner of rental housing in the city, I mean, they're running for the hills. They don't want to own rental housing here. I mean, it's so unsure. And so how are we going to get more? And how are we going to get it better if we can't do it? And so with her, she was representing the little landlords, and they all came to her aid at a couple of the meetings.
Sure.
And then, she bought the tide, she bought cause, she bought the tenant unit, she bought the Democratic Central Committee and the powers that be. And they just, went extremely hard on her. And so, I mean, I sort of look at that, and then I look, at Doss. So 2 really attractive candidates, both got knocked out. And so it's like, what the heck? And they're opposite. So the party loved Doss, the party ran Doss, party was supporting him. I don't know if anyone, I think Doss took his race serious. I don't think anyone else did. I think everyone thought he had a walk.
Yeah.
And then you watch all the friends on the Republican Central Committee think Roy is the second coming, and I think he's a moderate. I think he's not going to be that much different on many issues than Doss.
Yeah.
But with her, I think she never had a political machine. She never had her person. And while I talk to her, I'm not a person, and I can't be someone's person. Plus, maybe having a conservative 70-year-old Republican, right? I guess it does. But she, you got to have her person. You always look at. I mean, Doss always had his. Randy has his people, and Randy's his own person. He's strong.
Yeah. Who's Doss's person? Where did that person go? They weren't around last year.
Well, we don't have to go into it, but did you write the story where they're all pointing fingers?
Probably, yeah. I mean,
It's like, who failed on this campaign? Well, I was up doing Jones' campaign, and
oh yeah, that one. Yeah, I did. Yeah, we were trying to outdo it.
one of my favorite political stories in the last 3 or 4 years. I giggled the whole time.
Yeah.
And I mean,
Mary Rose said, that's funny because I thought I was helping Joe win.
that was, yeah, that's funny enough. And then they threw some kid that was doing DOSes under the bus. Obviously he must not be very good.
On staffer saying it was his first campaign. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to get to DOS, the second, and then we'll wrap up. But I wanted to just finish on the rent control issue. Very divisive issue. When's that headed in 2025 from your perspective? I sort of surmised that with Wendy Santa Maria on there, who's very progressive, very left, that's going to push somebody like Meagan Harmon, Kristen Stedman, a little bit more to the middle. Politically, they have an advantage there because maybe they could be the broker, the peacemaker of a good deal there. Where's this headed?
Well, that's what I worry about. I think that Alejandra sort of steadied the ship, even though she really didn't know that's what she was doing. She steadied the ship a little bit with a number of issues. I mean, the issue that if you do the rent eviction issue, which is ridiculous because we have rental property that are so old. So you renovate your place and you need to allow the people to come back in, the same people to come back in like a year, 2 years, 3 years later. And you can only up the rent by 10%. I mean, and redoing an apartment is going to cost you like hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars, depending on the property. I mean, what that says, don't do it. Let it become a slow law. Or, I mean, the city council in a majority are actually looking to make the model landlord of Santa Barbara, Dario Pina, and that's what cause, and that's what cause in the Democratic Party are doing. Dario Pina may as well be the poster child for landlords in Santa Barbara because you can't do what you need to do. So you buy a property, you buy it when it's in crappy shape. You put a pile of money aside to fix it up and create new housing. And you can only get 10% more after, and you're going to lose money, so you don't do it.
We know there's a market. People will come to Santa Barbara and pay these really high rents. But John, I know you're a good guy. I know you care about people. And I know privately the things you've done in the community that you've never told me just to help out people that they've told me. But when we lose people, right? When poor people, economically disadvantaged people can't afford to live here and they have to move, I mean, that's a loss to this community.
It's really, really horrible. And so I mean, it tears me apart when I talk to young people that are getting started who hadn't had the advantage of a college degree, or the worst are seniors. They're to get it bounced around. And, Santa Barbara does more in affordable housing, more for Section 8. The city nonprofits. I mean, there's one nonprofit in town that has 200 units and they're all affordable senior. We do so much. And then the question is, how can we do more? And if we do more, where are the people going to come from out of town? And can we ever meet the demand? I mean, that's a real, I mean, it's just like housing period in Santa Barbara. Can we ever meet the demand of people that want to come here? And I hope not, because that's how our housing, that's how the value of housings here goes up. But I mean, that's a tough issue, Josh. I don't think rent control is the answer.
So
that's an economic down cycle. We're trying to help people. I mean, get a means to buy more. I mean, our housing programs in the city of Santa Barbara is amazing with housing programs. Absolutely amazing.
and they have that housing trust fund and the developers are funding it. And in a few years, I think it's going to have a lot of money and be able to make a difference. Let's talk about our old friend, Dos Williams. You've known him for years, and you mentioned Greg Hart, right?
Yeah.
You guys are friends. These people talk to you. You may be different politically, but you respect.
We can still talk. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, and I know same way with Doss. You guys talk. There's a lot of respect there. What are you gonna miss most about him? He's been in office for 22 years now, 21 years. So what are you gonna miss now that he's gone? Or will
Well,
about to be?
one of my favorite moments with Chris talk, Greg, but when COVID first started, Greg was the chair of the board, right?
Mhm.
And he had to do the weekly the weekly meetings or the daily meetings, that horrible reports. They're just
Right.
and they're just bad. And they're really going bad. And too many people are talking. Too many people are just BSing the whole story. I mean, now that we know more and more what was happening at the time, it was just so bad.
Huh.
And I called Greg, I go, Greg, stop it. Stop letting these people talk. Get a summary from them, let them do a quick report, and then you summarize and move on. You got to do it. And Greg's like, yeah, I know. I just need someone like you to call and tell me, because all these people. I go, because Greg, you're sitting there, and it's just a terrible report, and it goes on too long. And he goes, I got it. So Greg was that guy. You could go and tell him, come on, fix it. Uh, Doss, the same thing. I called Doss, and I called Doss on an issue once, and he's like, "Are you working on this? Are you getting paid? Are you like a paid lobbyist on this stuff?" Not at all. I will come by and swear on a stack of Bibles, but I just watching you do this, and it just drives me crazy, because that's not you.
Mhm.
And he's like, "You're right. You're right." I mean, he was a guy that would listen. And then he's also a guy that would argue with you. So I had, so in his election 4.5 years ago, the 20 election, I had an event for him in my office, and that's crazy, early 20, and at the event was Bray Hart and Bob Nelson, before Bob Nelson was elected,
Okay.
and it was the most unique political event I've ever done. And so it started with Bob Nelson giving a little speech, and he had note cards. And I took him away. I said, Bob, just speak from the heart. And Bob's like, Dawson and I don't agree on a lot of like national political issues or political philosophy, but I love working with him. I'm a staffer and I get to work with him. And I just feel that as I get into office, I'm going to get elected because I don't have an opponent. Dawson is the guy I want to sit next to. And then Greg is like, Dawson and I have on the same side of the aisle, we butt heads all the time on different things, but we work together really well. And that and as much as Doss was very much about Doss, like any politician, he was also a guy that had matured in office, that knew that 99 999 issues didn't need to have a fight. And you could fight about the one. You didn't have to have all these little fights just because to prove that you're smarter. And there are days in the city council with some of the council members now that I just see they just want to get into
Yeah.
a little. And they pick an item, they haven't thought about it, they scribble some notes, they look at something and they get in a fight. And I'm worried that the board is slowly going, in the last two elections, losing a little bit of that camaraderie.
Yeah.
I mean, Joan's good to get along with. Bob's great. Larry's great. I just think down south, I don't know what Roy's going to be like. If he becomes more Doss, Greg Hart like, I think then Laura Capps can become more of that too.
Yeah. So Roy's a mystery because the Republicans think he's, a Republican in disguise, but they may find out real quickly that he's not. And it takes a long time.
When they finally did the final counts,
Yeah.
I was going into Harry's to get some takeout, and we have this incredible one of your TV media guys that you go on his show a lot.
Oh yeah, sure.
Jerry,
Yeah.
Jerry, Pat McElroy, and a couple others are out there having a cocktail, celebrating Roy, and I go in and Mike Stoker walks by.
Huh.
And I go, hey, Mike, all your political buddies are out front having a drink. You should join them. They're celebrating Roy. And I didn't say who. And I see Mike go out. I wish I could be out there to see what happened. But I mean, that's what it was. I mean, you got Jerry, you got Pat, and then you got Mike Stoker. So it'll be interesting. I mean, hopefully he can do that, because we're not about the business we have isn't about that. I mean, Sable, we got an issue there. I mean, that's a huge issue for the county. It's a huge property tax issue. It's a huge liability if we don't let them do something.
There were a lot of people coming up with theories as to why DOS lost. I'm stunned. I may never understand.
I don't think we will. I'm with you.
What role would cannabis play in this? He seemed to have beaten it back in the Laura Capps campaign, but people.
So I think I did a little work on a cannabis project, and I washed my hands and face every time I left a room. I mean, I had to file a suit to get paid. It was a nightmare. Worst industry I've ever anything to do with. And I think cannabis has taken down a lot of lives, really good lives, because of the addictions. And I think the latest victim of cannabis is Doss Williams. And I think he got blamed. I mean, drive through his district.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a pretty smell. I mean, if I wake up every morning to that smell, I'm thinking, Doss. And you know what I mean? And so Laura did the damage, and Roy finished off the case.
Yeah.
And it was just and the other is, I mean, I pinged Doss a couple times at campaign. Hey man, how you doing? Anything I can help you with? Long break? No, everything's going fine. I'm like, okay. I don't think he realized how bad it was. And part of watching the bad is watching your publication, and the Independent, and watching these little chips away at someone. I mean, we saw that with Alejandra. I mean, the Independent did like 3 or 4 interesting stories. Not saying Alejandra's bad, not saying anything, not attacking her, but just little chinks, like that she missed meetings and she missed that and she didn't do that. I mean, all of a sudden you start seeing those headlines, and then that gets out and other stuff, and slowly just erodes.
Yeah.
And I think that happened with Doss over the 4 years.
Yeah, well, and I spent most of my career being accused of being biased in support of DOS, in favor of DOS. And DOS has told me one-on-one, he's like, you're essentially trying to silence your lambs. Like, because he accused me of turning on him and said, you're trying to make up for what you have, internalized all these years for what all these people have been accusing you of. And I said, it's not really that. It's not about me. It's that so many of these players, I mean, Barney Malekian, Pat McElroy, they come out with this flyer in support of Roy Lee. And this is Joyce Dudley. I mean,
oh, I know.
That's our heavy hitters.
That is a tough group to come out. I mean, Pat, who I absolutely love, who's politically has become more and more liberal as his retirement continues, but he's also a good man to look at candidates, and he never had a thing ugly with Doss. And then Joyce, I mean, I met Joyce when she was first running, and I was looking at the other candidates, and Joyce, I'm like, wow, you're way liberal for me. And I spent like 2 hours with her, and I'm like, you know what? I absolutely love who you are, and I think you would be an amazing DA, and I'm going to help you.
Wow.
And I'm friends with her, worked with her. She brought my daughter in as a intern during law school, and my daughter's now a DA. Thanks to the people in the Santa Barbara DA's office. I mean, Joyce's, and then John's a great replacement. I mean, and she groomed him. That's what you do in those offices. She was a treasure for Santa Barbara. Barney the same way. So when people like that, I think we all like. Say something's right. It's got to be right. So Roy's got a tough job. He's number one. He's got big shoes. Doss was bigger than life. Doss minimized issues that could have become huge.
Right.
He tried to make them better, but and on the cannabis stuff, you look at the contributions. Of course, they're going to contribute to, because he led the effort.
Yeah.
But he was no radical pro cannabis guy. It's just a bad political choice on his part, and he paid the price.
Yeah, I mean, Doss played chess, political chess. And
He was like 12 years old, I swear, when I first met him doing politics. And by the time he was, he was a staffer, and then he's running for city council, and he's he's showing up where I had breakfast with my daughter every Saturday. Every once in a while, he'd show up with someone. He'd come over. He'd remember her name. He'd sit there. I'm like, this guy's going to be an absolute unbelievable candidate. He would do a TV spot and call me. Do you see my TV spot? When I said, Doss, it's amateur hour, dude. You can do so much better. He said, but he would listen and do stuff. Anyway, I'm going to miss him. I mean, I'm going to miss him like I miss some of the other good guys that were on there. And, I think we have the potential to have a really good communicative board. I think, the council is sort of communicative at times, but I think replacing Allie with someone who's a little more radical, a little less roots in the community. Oscar has these great roots in the community, but, is not that guy in politics. I mean, he's old school Santa Barbara. He's like the guys used to be there. But I think Wendy, she's an out of town organizer. I mean, it's like, and she's pretty young to be an out of town organizer. To be elected.
She's very smart, though. I don't know how much time you will meet her eventually, I guess. But she's very smart, so she should not be minimized. But Meagan Harmon, by the way, I mean, she's also a great asset to that team. One thing about Doss is he recycled his 2020 television ad at the last minute in this campaign. Well, because if you look at Doss now, I mean, he has aged unbelievably in 4 years.
As we said before we went live on this, the part of me thinks that he was done. That he didn't even know it. Deep down, it's time for a change. I mean, it's hard to be in the public eye. He's got kids, he's got a great wife, he's got a great life. I mean, why? Yeah, and by the way, I mean, Meagan Harmon is one incredibly smart, good politician. She's absolutely amazing. I called when she was first appointed, and on her resume said she had worked at Davies and Gilbert law firm in New York City, and that's my corporate law firm. So I called the senior partner that works on stuff, and I go, tell me about this Meagan Harmon. He goes, she was like an intern here. I go, yeah, tell me about her. He goes, oh, I remember her. Let me think. Oh, she was really smart.
Yeah.
We wanted to hire her to stay in New York.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, and she's been a good player. I mean, Coastal Commission, that's a big grow up. You learn politics in the Coastal Commission.
I hope she finds a spot, in these moving pieces.
Yeah, I mean,
chairs.
The first big chair, the big trophy chair, has to move first. Salute, and everything depends if Salute moves.
Right.
But I mean, there's a lot of room here for Republicans.
Yeah.
So funny. I mean, people ask me, when you're doing stuff in Congress, do you talk to Salute? I go, well, of course, but the candidates that I support, are in Montana, North Dakota, Texas. I mean, they're all the people that I know really well, especially in the Senate, that when, I need to talk to someone, and they're like, oh, yeah, you don't have to live in the state to be a friend.
Yeah. Well, John Davies, I really appreciate your time, just bringing all this knowledge, expertise, insight into.
I don't know about that.
No, it's great.
A lot of hot air to give you. But anyway, it's always fun with you, Josh. I'm always blown away what you've done with your life. I remember when you started the news press, and we got to butt heads a couple of times. It was my head butting era, and you were a young journalist that were more than willing to butt heads, and watched you just grow and what you're doing now, and how you're teaching, how you're doing this, how you're writing and doing stuff. It's really it's a testament to your willingness to work hard, take care of your family. That's a good deal. So I'm always honored to do anything with you.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. When you butt heads with John Davies when you're 25 years old, everybody else after that just seems lightweight, So
I don't know. How about at 70 when we're doing the preserve the preserve that on the hill when we talked.
Marcus, yeah, that was pretty intense too, but
Yeah, but it was
I'm not as scared as I was way back then, but yeah.
no, I don't think you're ever scared.
Yeah.
Anyway, hey, take care and
Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
You too. Thanks for your time. Have a great day.
All right, bye bye.